We are live. I want to thank our advertisers, the Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, the Firearms Safety Institute, Firearms Policy Coalition. This is going to be episode 321 of the Polite Society podcast. We'll be going here in just a second. Do want to mention to our live viewers, first of all, you can join in and you can be a part of the conversation here on the show. Just click the Q&A button if you're on Google Plus, and you can send a question right into the Hangout, or you can comment on the YouTube channel. Commenting on the YouTube channel does take a few seconds to get to us, and sometimes it takes a few minutes for me to see that it has come through, but we will get to it. We will comment before we close the show out. Okay.
Paul,
Yeah,
I left you that email you wanted. It's in the group chat folder.
Yep, I got it. Let me get that taken care of right now. Copy.
I copy.
Paste. Posted. Okay, let me pull up the Q&A app. Although we haven't had one of those in a very long time.
Qua. Qua, 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 qua.
All right, looking at... Okay. I think we are ready to lay down an open and personal news segment. You guys all ready?
Ready?
Okay, here we go. Hi, and welcome to the Polite Society podcast presented by the Firearms Policy Coalition. We're recording this one live on Sunday, May 31st, 2015. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Rob Morse, and on tonight's show we talk with Alexander Rubian about the campaign to recall New Jersey Senator Steve Sweeney.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk about Texas finally getting open carry.
I'm Gary Doherty, and in one of sorry guys. I'm Gary Doherty, and in one of our DGUs we have a rarity, New Jersey. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 321 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Personal news segment. Rob, looks like you're up first in the show notes here. What's been up with you since the last time we were together?
I had a ball. I got to shoot my Mosin Nagant again. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I had to sight the rifle in after I put on a taller front sight. So far, the way it's set up, I'm a 3-minute shooter. I'm sure the Appleseed Pros do way better. I'm actually looking forward to shooting it again. I want to try outdoors at longer range and with a larger target. While I was at the range, I got to shoot my friend's Browning copy of a 1881 lever action. That's chambered in 45-70. So it throws 350 grains downrange, and it makes the Mosin feel like a 22.
Oh.
One of the big reasons is more than just the recoil. It has no butt pad. And finally I handed it back to him and I go, I'm going to have a bruise. You're going to have a bruise. Why didn't you? It's a short little carbine-like rifle. You're not riding a horse. Get a butt pad. Oh, yeah, good idea. So I may even buy one for him as a gift. The fit and finish of the rifle was fine. The action was smooth. But it was really embarrassing that the front sight was at least 1/10 of an inch too short. Even at 50 yards, it was shooting almost a foot high.
Wow.
It was
really high.
That's again, our concern was if we took it out to 100 yards, you know, if you miss the backstop, you're not getting invited back to that range, right? That'll get your attention. Non-shooting, I read Ken Blanchard's program, Black Man with a Gun. I was on Lock and Load Radio with Bill Frady this Friday. And Paul, Bill said he will come on our podcast. We just have to give him a shout.
Very cool.
Um,
Very cool.
I've got Bob Main set up for an interview on Monday. I was listening to his podcast, and he said something so interesting. I want to bat it back and forth. So if you guys are available after work Monday, jump in.
All
Paul, I'll put it on the staff page. We'll figure out who's going to join me.
Okay.
John, what have you been up to?
Well, not too much to report this week. It's been mostly work since Memorial Day. I have been assembling the parts for my retro AR-15, kind of an A1 version, and so far I've got everything I need except for the barrel, which is kind of an essential piece. You know, in this retro, won't be totally retro, but it's going to be a mixture of original surplus parts, my upper, my stock, my hand guards, my pistol grip, my front sight base are all surplus. And then for the fire controls, I'm going to put modern stuff in there just to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad had shot expert with an M16 when he was in the Army, and I thought, you know, I always liked that style, so why not have something similar?
Now with the barrel you're looking, you're going to be putting on there. Do you know? And I'm just brand new at building ARs. I actually haven't built one yet. I'm just starting to gather information. What was the twist rate on the 1960s era military? And are you looking to match that, or are you looking to go with something a little more modern on your barrel as well?
I am going to match it. It was 1 in 12. Now Brownells has that 20-inch barrel, pencil barrel in 1 in 7. I'm happy with the 1 in 12. You can shoot 55 grain or lower, and it'll make it more realistic, shall we say. I mean, I've got plenty of stuff that could shoot the 62 and heavier grain. This one would be just set aside for 55 grain bullets.
Okay.
And there's a company up in Vermont, Green Mountain, that's supposed to be a very good barrel manufacturer. That's just what I'm after. So, Gary, what about you? What have you been doing this past week?
Well, I mentioned it on the show last week. I started teaching another Illinois concealed carry course. We're doing 4 4-hour sessions to get our full 16 in.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the nice things about teaching smaller classes is a couple of students had an issue with doing it Friday. So we did Thursday, and then instead of Friday, we're going to do, as soon as I get off the air tonight, we're going to do the second 4 hours, and then we'll follow up with Thursday, Friday at the end of this week, so we get it all in. But it's nice to be able to, and like I said, everybody was accommodating, and like I said, adjust schedules for everybody. We shot the Smith & Wesson M&P AR again, just grinning ear to ear. It's just a lot of fun. And shot the para with the self-defense ammunition again. Still had one malfunction in 100 rounds. So para said to shoot it dirty and then clean it. So I'm going to give it a cleaning and then run another 100 rounds through, and fingers crossed, if it runs that 100 without a malfunction, it will be the carry gun.
Okay.
I just got to make sure first before it takes that roll.
Okay.
And what's happening in South Dakota with Paul and Susan?
Well, Susan's not on the air today. She's feeling a little bit under the weather. She has got a bit of a runny nose and some cough, and her voice is sounding a little funky, so she really didn't want to come on the air today, and I can totally understand that. What's going on with me? Had a busy week of work. Had just all kinds of stuff going on. I expected to, last week was Memorial Day. I expected to leave on Monday. Well, didn't actually leave until Tuesday. I actually got Memorial Day off. I expected to leave in the afternoon and go up to the Twin Cities. Well, with the load they gave me, it was a load that there was nowhere to park anywhere near the place where I delivered, and the closest place to there to park was about an hour away from my house. So I would just have been gone for an hour, and I thought, I'm just going to stay home. So didn't leave till Tuesday, and worked Tuesday through Friday, and then yesterday I didn't get anything gun-related done. I mean, I didn't even get any work on the show done. I got we had meetings all day. Our Renaissance Festival is next week, and there's a couple there that's going to be doing a hand fasting for in the Renaissance. That's basically like a very long engagement. It's a trial marriage for 1 year and 1 day is basically what it is. At the end of the year, you can decide to go your own separate ways. You can really go tie the knot and get married, or if there's a kid involved, you're kind of stuck. So, but they're going to be doing one of those, and as the nobility, we are required to participate in that. And did a safety and security meeting last night. I am I don't know the proper term. I'm the medical officer, I guess. I'm the person in charge of medical there, as well as being part of the nobility. And so we met with security yesterday. We went over some things we wanted to be really clear on before fair started next week. And then today, we spent most of the day going through our emergency kit. I call it our go bag, but it's our medical kit, and we had two of them, and we decided we were just going to consolidate to one and take everything that was. And it's amazing. I've been in EMT for 24 years now, and a lot of the stuff I got as a brand new EMT I still have, including some stuff that expired in the 90s. So it was going through the go bags, taking everything out, making sure everything was was in serviceable dates, all the equipment worked, everything into one good bag that we take out. And
termites hadn't eaten the tongue depressors?
No, not yet. Those and the the long cotton tip swabs, those were still good. Termites hadn't got to those yet.
Hey, Paul, before you move on, you talked about talking with security for the Renaissance Festival. How does that work? Because I've sort of worked security. Really, it was just crowd management. It was more marketing than being ready to pick people up and throw them out. Is it a mix of volunteers plus pros plus sheriff's officers that are there on overtime or after hours?
It's all volunteer. We
Okay.
handle security through a group of individuals that are dressed as pirates, and the general public. If you go to a Renaissance Festival, the general public is encouraged. Certainly not required, but we encourage people to dress in garb if they feel like it.
Sure.
The only thing is, if you bring a sword or a blade, they'll require you peace tie it. Basically we take either just a zip tie, or maybe for some elaborate ones we'll get a string piece of leather and tie them off so they can't be drawn. Security, however, does not have their weapons peace tied. That is more just for show, but
right.
It's basically crowd control. If something were to really go wrong, and let's face it, I mean, they serve mead, which is a honey-based wine type beverage. It could. There's alcohol involved. There's adults. There's alcohol. Things can always go wrong, but generally we've had very, very few problems. Right. And you and me in the wall. Not that the listeners would ever say anything, but if things go absolutely terribly, horribly south, I do carry while I'm there, and I'm
Right.
not talking about my sword either. So.
Right. Well, and maybe somebody's got pepper spray, but I would think realistically the calls that you're likely to get is it's crowded and somebody trips over a tent peg, backwards, and now yeah.
We had a call last year. This is the most serious call since I have taken over the medical issues. We had a young lady who was part of a enactment team, and she got a strike from a 6.5-foot dulled broadsword on the neck.
Ow!
Yeah, and the person that was reenacting said it was about a 3/4 to 9/10 full power swing, and so she actually broke her collarbone.
Mm-hmm.
And there was we ended up, it kind of, you have to strike a balance. They want everything to look period, but in a case like that, we brought the ambulance right in the fairgrounds, right up to the tent where she was. They loaded her up, and she was gone. But yeah, normally it's bee sting, heat problems, heat exhaustion,
Okay.
heat strokes, that kind of thing. Our temperature is expected to be in the mid 80s with a high humidity next week, and we've got people that walk around in armor.
Some people are going to melt.
Yeah. So it's the normal. Make sure there's plenty of water that's cold, and we've got facilities we can set people down in, get a fan blowing on them, and all that good kind of stuff that's out of the public's view. So, but that's just kind of what's been going on with me. Just a whole lot of stuff, preparation for the Renaissance Festival, and I got to get my sword. Most swords are fairly well keep their shine, but I want to go through and get some metal polish and polish mine up, the blade of mine up, because mine is not piece tied. We actually use mine for the knighting ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
We have kids that go through a knighting ceremony every.
Oh, how cute!
So I got to get that done, and I think that's it for me. I do want to mention here we do have classes coming up. Chaz Murray is going to be doing a class in Utah the 24th and 25th of July, and he's going to be doing that with Tommy Nelson of the Gun Dudes. So go ahead and head over to concealmentsolutions.com/training to sign up for that one. And it's getting close. We're about 2.5 months away. We're going to be doing the Cornered Cat class again here in Sioux Falls, and that's going to be August 15th, 16th. Or I think it's a weekend. So if you're interested in joining that class, Susan at politicsandguns.com. We're going to go ahead and step aside to break then, and when we come back, boy, we got a ton of news. And we will get to that news right after this. Awesome.
I love when we have a ton.
Yeah, absolutely. Next week, it could be a metric ton. Okay, news.
So we're going to take turns?
Yeah.
Command decision there, Paul.
Yeah, no, we had a Q&A come in. It's Hablan Castellano is what they asked, and I don't know what that means.
Do it. Give it again. What is it again?
Hablan Castellano, Castellano. I don't even know what that is. Sounds
Castellano sounds like an Italian last name.
Well, Hablan is I thought it was maybe Spanish because Hablan and Habla, Habla, can you speak?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
sorry, listener, that was Damus Tattoo. I'm drawing a blank. So.
Okay, so who's reading first, Paul?
How many stories do we have? We can get by with one segment, you think?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A long 5.
think we
6, 7, 8, no, 9, 9. So
We're
we're
gonna
splitting
do-
in half, probably.
Yeah.
No, 9.
All right.
If we want to do it by sections, I'll take the first section.
Yeah, let's do it by segments, and then we'll go John, Rob, me, Gary.
I always get picked last.
Yeah. Well, you want to go you want to go second? You want to go? You want to go ahead?
No, I'm just playing. It's fine.
All
So
right.
sensitive.
Yeah. Okay. You ready, John?
I'm ready.
Okay. Rolling.
Welcome to the new segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Our first story comes from Washington, D.C. Judge Frederick J. Scullin Jr. said Washington, D.C.'s regulation of concealed carry was unconstitutional. The judge enjoined the city from enforcing those laws. Then Judge Scullin denied D.C.'s request for a stay of his decision. In layman's terms, the judge said, "I mean it, and I mean it now." The Second Amendment Foundation has filed a motion seeking contempt charges against the city. The city had a chance to appeal the judge's original decision. One reason the city might not have appealed is that D.C. did not want to lose in front of a federal appeals court, and the D.C. law was so egregious that very well could have lost. They could very well have lost, even in the front of a Democratic-appointed judicial panel.
I was watching some comments on DC Carry, or from DC Carry on Facebook. I think they're starting to get some, mere mortals be granted permits in our nation's capital.
That's great.
And I think the reason DC didn't want to lose is they didn't want to set that big a precedent, because the notion of we'll regulate, we grant permits, we'll just regulate who gets them, is what they're trying to push forward in the Peruta case.
Okay. Now, let me ask this, and we discussed this last week. Then, do you think part of the reason to not appeal might also be that were they to lose that appeal, that the regulations in New Jersey, New York, California, the other
California, Hawaii, yes, that's my point exactly, Paul. If they lose that one, they could lose it big time, and they'd rather lose small.
Well, I mean, if they lose in D.C., then you would still have, you already have a split among the circuits, with the 7th Circuit, which is Chicago, going one way, and then the
4th going the other.
The 3rd and the 4th going another way.
Yeah, I agree. They would rather make it a burdensome and cumbersome process rather than lose it at a upper court level. And heaven knows, I mean, we were talking to John Pierce about it. They could require that the course be $10,000. They could require that it be 100 hours. So far, this is just the permit to apply, and then you have to go take all the courses and do the shooting portion, and then you get your license.
Right. Well, moving along, Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin signed a knife preemption bill. It passed the Oklahoma House by a vote of 81 to 4. The governor signed a bill allowing automatic opening knives the previous week. This means that common knives are legal across the state of Oklahoma, and law enforcement can now pursue violent criminals rather than chasing honest knife owners. Here for Oklahoma.
Yeah, maybe Texas will learn that same lesson, please.
Now, what do you guys think? Is it? I always have, and I mean always have, carried a knife with me all the time, a folding pocket knife.
Mm-hmm.
I
Does
don't.
it lock open?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Why is that different, Rob?
The laws are different. Whether it some pocket knives don't lock open.
Sure. I've never heard that distinction made, though.
Oh yeah, it is. In law, there's a distinction. I believe it's then called a gravity knife in that it locks open. For example, well, I think all of those are illegal in New York, but whether it locks or not makes it illegal in various cities, and I think San Antonio is one of them.
It is. And the locking, I mean, they're not gravity knives in the true sense of the word. A gravity knife was something that the German paratroopers used. You press a button while you're hanging upside down, and the blade drops out, and then you lock it into place. But what they're after are things like your buck knives that have a lock blade. I'm kind of thinking that one of the reasons they're against lock blades as opposed to your average case stockman or farmer's knife is that when it locks, it becomes a solid piece, and it's not going to fold across your fingers and cut them.
Well, but that's saying that if it locked, it would be a safer knife. Now, what I wonder is if a sheath knife, one with a fixed blade, is also prohibited. And in some states it is. It just has to be carried openly. The laws get really cumbersome.
We need to get Doug Ritter on again.
Yeah. Okay.
But my question would be, I wonder what percentage, and I would bet it's extremely high of our audience, but of the general population, it used to be extremely common for, for everybody to carry a knife. I wonder how many do now.
I don't know.
I always have one in my car, or two, or three.
I have one that stays in the truck. I have actually two that stay in the truck. I carry one in my pocket all the time. I have one in my carry vest. So when I have my carry vest on, I have two. I have one that stays in the pickup, and I've got a folding Bowie knife that I use for. Actually, usually it goes to barbecues with me, just A, to show off, and B, because it's a long bladed knife that I can use to carve meat with. So, but technically, that could be.
Use your 12-inch blade for your 6-inch steak.
Exactly.
Well, we have really good news from Texas. Licensed open carry has passed both houses of the Texas legislature. The Texas Senate and House passed separate open carry bills, and then both chambers ignored open carry until the last days of this legislative session. The Senate finally took up the House bill and passed licensed open carry. It included a provision that open carry is not probable cause for arrest. The concern was that Texas police would arrest any black person carrying a gun. This was a problematic provision. That provision has been eliminated from the bill, and both houses of the Texas legislature passed the bill this past Friday. Governor Greg Abbott tweeted, quote, "Open carry just passed in both the Texas House and Senate. Next destination, my pen," end quote.
Huh. I wonder, do you think that means he is going to sign it or not?
He ran on. Yeah, he ran saying he would. So
yeah, I know.
He better.
Well, I have teased our fellow podcaster Rachel Malone about how North Carolina is ahead of Texas on this. We have had unlicensed open carry since 1922. That said, I really want to recognize all the hard work that she and other gun rights activists put in to make this law a reality. Congratulations to Rachel and all the other Second Amendment activists in Texas who fought for this. They deserve a big hand.
Yeah, can I just add a PS on that to the ones that have fought positively for that? Yeah. We saw a weird story this past week about this bill and as it was going through, and one of the activists was not being positive, and it's unfortunate. But everybody who's been fighting the good fight and being positive about it, good job.
We had a note sent to us from one of our listeners on Facebook. Sent a message to the show's page, and I'm just going to go ahead and call him out. Robert Farrago at The Truth About Guns basically did a whole big story on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, saying it's dead and this and that, and this person's responsible for killing it, that person's responsible for killing it. Thank goodness he was wrong. And I'm just going to put this out for the listeners as well. Mr. Farrago, if you're listening, I really don't care. I don't consider Robert Farrago a great source for any type of 2A news. And if you're using him or anything from The Truth About Guns as your source for Second Amendment news, I'm going to really strongly suggest you look elsewhere.
One thing that does bother me is that amendment was stripped.
Yeah. And from what I've read, it was stripped because the police objected to it. And this was to make the bill palatable to the various police departments.
So we used to pull people over for the crime of driving while black. Now we can
walking with black gun.
Yeah. Well, now we can pull anybody over. Well, if you're carrying an open firearm, that's an invitation for every police officer to stop you every block. Really?
Yeah.
Now,
I wanted Texas to do better.
Is that officially a part of the bill now, that open carry is a reason for the police to stop you?
Well, no, what the provision is that if you were open carrying, that was not a de facto reason to be stopped. The police could not stop you just because you were open carrying. That was removed.
Okay.
I think the police themselves are going to have to be careful about it, mainly because if you just stop everybody who's open carrying, there's going to be lawsuits.
Yeah.
You have to have some sort. He was acting furtively. He was looking suspicious. Everybody open carrying is not suspicious. But you open carry your barbecue gun, give me a break.
Yeah. And this is where Open Carry Texas and groups like that I've been critical of in the past can be a huge benefit now. Now is not the time to stop your open carry rallies. Now is the time with a handgun now that's legal, or will be on. I think January 1st is the date this is going to go into effect.
Right.
So January 1st next year in Texas, the parts of it that are still warm, would be the time to get a handgun open carry walk, to show people that it can legally and safely be done. And get a couple hundred of you, go walking, and I don't think they're going to have enough officers to arrest 200 legally open carrying people.
Dressed in your Sunday finest, carrying your children.
And bring your barbecue guns, be looking like a great person, act respectably, yeah.
Well, we have more good news from Texas. A campus carry bill passed the Texas Senate by a 20-11 party line vote on Saturday. The bill will be taken up this afternoon, Sunday, by the Texas House. Governor Abbott has said he will sign the bill when and if it arrives on his desk. The bill, as passed by the Senate, would allow licensed carry holders to carry in dorms, classrooms, and public buildings of public universities. A provision to add private universities was eliminated in a conference committee. While schools will be able to designate their own quote-unquote gun-free zones, it will be limited. State Senator Brian Birdwell, a Republican from Granbury, Texas, said his legislation would allow for, quote, very limited, reasonable prohibitions, unquote, on handguns in certain locations on university property. He said his intent was that public college campuses would be, quote, as permissive and accessible, unquote, as possible to licensed handgun holders, and that universities would have to be as specific and as minimalistic as possible in defining restricted areas.
I wonder if they'll provide security in those areas.
Yeah, one would hope so.
Very much so.
To the point where, I mean, honestly, we're talking not only security, but metal detectors, that kind of thing. You know, if you're going to ban me from carrying in an area that's generally permissive, I would hope that you make darn sure that everybody is disarmed.
Well, we know that's not going to happen, and this is.
It's happened in Arizona, Gary. That's
What's
the law.
That college campuses have.
No. That areas that government offices that are banned have to provide A, storage lockers, and B, physical security. You need a magnetometer. You need somebody there. You need to have controlled points of access.
Well, you know, in North Carolina, I don't know if it's the law. It may be just practice, but I'm thinking in the courthouses I've been to in the last 3 to 4 years, everyone had a checkpoint with a metal detector staffed by a deputy. Some did have places where you could store your pocket knives or whatever. Some did not. But everyone that I've been to and that's at least 5 or 6, you had to go through a checkpoint with a metal detector staffed by a deputy. And then the rest of the place was gun-free.
The South Dakota, at least the county courthouse where I'm at, is that way. The one thing that happens here that really burns me is that's where the general public, now the judges and the lawyers and some other court workers, get to just waltz right past in a separate entrance. Well, excuse me, I know personally an attorney that has, in the last few years, long after they became attorney, got convicted of a felony. Now they're no longer an attorney, but just because somebody's an attorney, just because they're a judge, just because they happen to be a bailiff, just because they happen to be a clerk, doesn't mean they can't snap and waltz right through their own special entrance with a handgun. I'm sorry, if you're going to do it for one person, everybody needs to do it.
Now, in their defense, I was talking to some of the law enforcement officers that got the pat-down X-ray magnetometer duty at our San Diego City Hall, and I realized I had a pocket knife in my pocket, and I went, "Oh, shoot, fellas, what do you want me to do?" And they looked at me and said, "If you put it in your backpack, can you leave it there?" And I go, "Man, I'm just glad you're not going to confiscate it and, write me a ticket or something for it." He goes, "Nah, no." So yeah. Some people have some common sense.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and step off the break. I'm sorry, we were starting to say something?
Yeah, I just don't. I know you guys brought up excellent examples where they have added security, but I'm hesitant to believe that just because this law has gone through in Texas and it doesn't seem to say you have to, if you're going to have a quote-unquote gun-free zone, that you have to have some sort of security in place. And without there being a law, I would be surprised if they take on that additional expense.
Right.
On
right.
I don't know. I'm not 100% comfortable with the vagueness of this limited, reasonable, it just seems a little loose.
What, you think lawyers and politicians will abuse some phrase in the law?
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I'm not being positive, am I?
I'm shocked. Lawyers and politicians acting badly? All right. We do need to step off to break. We've still got more news to come, and we'll get to that news right after this. Okay. Okay, Rob, I think you're up. And you ready?
Yep.
Rolling.
I've forgotten how we do an intro.
Hi, and welcome back.
Polite Society Podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy
Yes,
Coalition.
thank you. Welcome to the Polite Society Podcast, presented by the Firearms Policy Coalition. This is our second news segment. Susan isn't here, so I'm a weak stand-in. A concealed carrier had his pistol seized and disassembled in Florida. Yes, a Coral Gables, Florida policeman noticed a CCW license when he stopped a motorist. The policeman freaked out, seized the pistol, disassembled it, and then placed it in the trunk. What's shocking is that his police chief sees nothing wrong with this behavior. And his family were driving through Coral Gables when they were pulled over for exceeding a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. The cop noticed the CCW license when getting a license from the driver. The cop's reaction was completely without justification. He ordered the driver to freeze, and then the officer asked where the gun was holstered. If there was a gun, yes, where's it holstered? Then the cop reaches in and removes the pistol from the driver's holster. The pistol was finally returned, disassembled to the car trunk. The driver is sure he was treated as a criminal, and his police chief feels this deputy did nothing wrong. Others disagree. Marion Hammer, the executive director of the United Sportsmen of Florida and past president of the National Rifle Association, disagrees. Quote, I believe this incident involves an illegal search without provocation of a law-abiding citizen duly licensed to carry a concealed weapon. Close quote. Eric Friday, the general counsel for Florida Carry, also had issues with the constitutionality of the search. Friday was not surprised at all by the allegations. He reiterated that no driver in Florida has a duty to tell police when they are armed. Quoting the lawyer, because of repeated instances such as you have described to me, I no longer recommend that to people today. Close quote. Quote, I changed my position because of misconduct such as this. I strongly believe it's time for the legislature to create specific penalties that apply when the rights of concealed carry licensees are abused, or this behavior will continue unabated. Close quote. You know, it's a sad state of affairs when cops mistrust and fear their obvious ally. That's us, the armed citizen.
The armed citizen who, if they're carrying with a permit, has gone through a background check, who has found you're the good guy. We're the good guys.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Rob. It is sad.
I used to agree with this attorney. I used to say, you know, it's because of the case of the truckers. We've had Chaz Murray on. And he's talked about. He's got a system he uses to remember which states you must inform in.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always been of the opinion that as long as I can legally carry in the state, I'm all for the police, and I'll just go ahead and I'll tell them right off the bat that, look, I'm carrying, and show them my permit, and how do you want to proceed? Well, with cases like this, you know, not only one thing that wasn't mentioned in the read of the story, the officer went to the point of not only disassembling the gun, he took the magazine and ejected every round out of the magazine and let it roll around loose in the trunk.
I think we found a guy who needs to find another line of work.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, wait, hold on. I mean, his chief approves of this activity. This
Okay.
is not one guy.
Find another line of work.
Yeah.
This is coming from the top, so this is what's being trained, probably. it's not just unfortunately one guy who is not properly trained. It seems to be this is the MO of the police department, and it's just a shame because it's so far out of line.
Well, okay, the gun owners in Coral Gables need to start making some phone calls.
Yep. And there are gun owners in Coral Gables. The entire state of Florida has a lot of gun owners. So yeah, you need to be starting to make calls, folks. And
given that it's Coral Gables, they're wealthy gun owners.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Maybe the chief will listen.
Hopefully.
We've met anti-gun UCLA law professor Adam Winkler before. The blog Not One More Gun Law fisked his inane Huffington Post article, Ferguson, with so many guns in America, police are trained to live in fear. The professor pushes the standard snake oil of universal background checks and scary gun bans. So it's a little surprising when the professor dismissed the new California gun violence restraining orders as ineffective. Last year, California instituted new laws forming gun violence restraining orders that allow associates and law enforcement to immediately strip a citizen's Second Amendment rights with nothing more than an allegation. Patterned after the much-abused domestic violence restraining orders, the gun violence restraining orders are a clear threat to California citizens' embattled rights. A bill to punish false allegations was soundly defeated in the legislature. The National Journal found that gun violence restraining orders would not have stopped many of the recent mass shootings. In their report, Winkler is quoted, quote, "The truth is that it is very rare to know in advance when someone is going to be dangerous with a firearm. This is not going to make a huge dent in our gun violence statistics," close quote. Seems like this even stopped clock is right for once.
You know, what's the old saying? Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Well, he got this one right.
Yeah, he did. For the wrong reasons, but he got it right.
He did get it right.
Now, Rob, you live in California, at least for now.
Yes, sir.
Have you heard of many of these gun violence restraining orders being issued so far?
Not yet. A lot of the seizures are still from the medical prohibitions where, your wife complained about her medications, went back to the hospital, had an adverse reaction, they prescribed something, drugs are in the house. Now the state police go into histrionics that those drugs and your guns were in the same house, therefore everybody's stuff gets seized.
Ugh.
Yeah. Sorry.
And what do you imagine could happen if California does like Colorado or Washington State, pretty much legalizing recreational use of marijuana?
Well, okay, so you're in a mixed housing unit, meaning you've got your apartment. One of your roommates does drugs, and he's even got his medical marijuana card, and you've got guns. What happens then? I don't know. I don't know. The Obama administration's Department of Justice will move forward with a dozen new anti-gun regulations, The Hill reported. These proposed rules are to be enacted in the waning years of Obama's term. According to The Hill, the new regulations range from restrictions on high-powered pistols to gun storage requirements. There will be a renewed effort to keep guns out of the hands of people who are mentally unstable or have been convicted of domestic abuse. There are rising concerns that the administration will try to disqualify as many people as possible from gun ownership. People who may have had a problem at some distant time in their past, regardless of their current behavior. Dr. John Lott reports on the media's coming support of these efforts, and it has been telegraphed by Columbia University's week-end workshop for journalists. 15 of the panel's 17, quote, experts were allegedly gun control advocates. Apparently, journalism that presents both sides of the story is long, long gone in the profession. Gun safety is likely to be the media theme, a more palatable and disingenuous description of anti-gun efforts. The workshop promised a range of biased anti-gun talking points, ignoring much of the benefits and realities of an armed populace. It's been said many times before, but the remaining months of Obama's term are likely to be the most dangerous ever to the Constitution as a whole and to the right and keep and bear arms in specific.
I should note here that the workshop that we talked about is not only through Columbia University, it's paid for by Bloomberg through a, quote, a grant from Bloomberg.
Wow.
Well, suppose the DOJ says, oh, you know, we need to seize guns if there was an allegation of domestic violence.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means anybody can drop a dime and leave an unsubstantiated charge? Because, man, I'm just thinking, let's see, there's some politicians I don't like. I could just call up and say, you know, I think they may have had a domestic violence incident.
I think
Is that
he
enough?
spanked his child.
What?
He spanked his child. He abused his child. That's domestic violence.
Yeah. Very much so, yes. And the other one I want to talk about real quickly is, and we were talking about this a little bit pre-show, not specifically this, but they were looking into placing restrictions on high-powered pistols. Well, we were talking about the 50 Action Express, and pre-show, and let's go back to the most common firearms used in crimes are ones that are just generally stolen, meaning they're the most common firearms in circulation. Now, the 50 Action Express, they're out there, but there aren't, compared to your regular 9mm, they're not
Common.
comparatively as many as the high-powered firearms.
Sure.
We talk about big pistols. Rob was talking about the 4570 in the personal segment. There's the BFR revolver that is available in 4570.
I think somebody called.
Right. Yes.
Could you imagine, just going to that specific gun, Rob, you fired that full-size, carbine without a butt pad, and it bruised your shoulder. Could you imagine firing a revolver in that same caliber?
Not deliberately, not twice. Man.
Not deliberately.
Well, I mean, as a boy, I bet this is going to be abrupt. And wow, that was nastier than I thought it would be. Why do you want to do that to? Okay, let's go 180 degrees. There was a photo. What do they call them? A photojournalist expose of women and firearms, and there were some female hunters that just got really tired of carrying a long gun, even on with a sling, and they would carry a large, very long-barreled revolver in a shoulder holster and hunt, deer with it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, if they're up to, that's hard to do in the plains of Idaho where 100-yard shots are the norm, but if you're in brush country, more power to you.
And then there are states like Indiana where if you're deer hunting, you have to use a shotgun, but you could use a pistol. And so people have your Thompson Contenders in like 243 or something else.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on to our next story, I didn't catch it as it came up, but the story before that, the one about the officer disassembling the Tony put up a Q&A, and he stated, "I'm surprised a cop knew how to disassemble any firearm. Most only know their service pistol." So yeah, it's quite common. I mean, for the most common, if the guy, I don't know what I don't remember. I don't even remember if it was mentioned in the story what specific firearm the concealed carry person had. But if it were a Glock, I mean, that's commonly known how to disassemble. But if it were like an FN57, you know, you'd have to be pretty much a gun guy to have ever run across one, let alone how to disassemble it.
I don't know that gun specifically, but like you said, I think the Glock takedown and the takedown pin, like on a 1911 style, is pretty common across a lot of guns. So those are two main takedowns. And then there's the one where you actually flip the lever 90 degrees to take. So there's kind of really three.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more than that I'm?
If we're going to go back into ancient history like that, what's the most dangerous activity we do with a firearm? Holstering and unholstering, right?
Oh yeah.
And this guy reaches into an individual who's belted into his car, fishes in around to get the gun and withdraw it. And I'm going, that's...
Yeah.
If I had a buddy in a car crash, I don't know that I'd do that. I'd cut the rig off him before I'd reach in and get it out of the holster like that.
Please don't do that. I have a very expensive rig. Leave it on. It's secured.
I meant the gun belt, but you're
no, I understand. Even my belt, man. These are gun belts.
I know. I've got one too.
Yeah. So leave it on. My gun's secured. You know, of course, they're probably going to do it when I get to the hospital anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's press on. Bloomberg's useful idiot, New York Representative Carolyn Maloney, has introduced a bill to require the nation's gun owners to carry liability insurance. The Firearms Risk Protection Act would require gun buyers to have liability insurance before being allowed to purchase a firearm. It would then fine any owner $10,000 if found not to have it. Service members and law enforcement officers would be exempt from that requirement. It should be obvious that requiring a citizen to purchase a service from a private entity before exercising a protected right strains the limits of the Constitution and the limits of common sense. Poor inner city residents most in need would be economically prevented from exercising their right to self-defense. This is far from Maloney's first anti-gun initiative. Just last week, we discussed her proposed bill requiring each gun purchase to be reported to the Attorney General. Maloney and her puppet master Bloomberg are clearly no friends of the Constitution.
You know, I hate to add this, but Maloney is a North Carolina native who went to New York City seeking fame, fortune, and gun control.
Yeah, she found him.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
I would like to. Let's go back to.
Go ahead, Paul.
I'm sorry. Let's the main purpose of the main thrust of this is requiring a private citizen to buy a insurance. You know, I thought that was unconstitutional. Didn't we have something like?
Well, we just found out that it's not a tax; it's only a fee.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's. I would have, if this would have come out 5-6 years ago before the whole Obamacare abomination came about, then I would have said, you know, that'll never happen because they cannot require somebody to do something through a private company. But yeah, I guess Obamacare proved me wrong on that one.
Yeah,
well,
but
go ahead, John.
But the difference is, healthcare is not in the Constitution.
Yeah.
The Second Amendment, just like the First Amendment, is in the Constitution. It's an enumerated right. And restrictions on newspapers, requiring licenses, the courts have not looked too favorably on stuff like that, just to exercise an enumerated right.
Well, I think some of these anti-gun politicians that are just against us write these types of legislation just to keep us dancing, so we can't focus on real issues. This isn't going to pass, but it's another thing that it's another silly thing that we have to address, and it takes money and time, and it just spreads out our resources even more, and keeps their name in the light of the money that comes in, like you said, from Bloomberg, and their constituents that are really confused, and it just keeps us spending money on silly things instead of real things.
I think you're right about that. I saw this bill. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. It has not a chance in hell of passing.
Right.
To be honest about it. Just like our previous bill. But most bills that are introduced have no chance of passage anyway.
Right.
But I think Gary's right. You get donations. Well, I introduced a bill.
Yep. Dialing for dollars. It does bother me that she exempted law enforcement. Yeah. I understand why. I would guess there was some union pressure to say not our unionized law enforcement officers. But in fact, individual armed citizens are safer than law enforcement. So which one are you excusing, Congress critter? The next article is about the Ferguson effect. It's been a rough 10 months since the justifiable shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. It looks like it's going to get worse. In a Wall Street Journal commentary, the impacts of the growing anti-police sentiments from black activists, media, and progressive politicians were examined. It's called the Ferguson effect, and it documents the restrictions on the police and the resulting dramatic increase in crime. As we in the gun rights community know well, politicians typically respond to notorious crimes and events by punishing the law-abiding. The Ferguson effect is much of the same. After a string of highly publicized black deaths by police, usually when the suspect resisted arrest, there's been a slew of anti-police efforts. Police have been facing new rules, regulations, and policies, including DOJ consent decrees, community organizers, and politicized civilian review boards. All of this under the highly biased microscope of the media. The assault on policing has resulted in a destruction of police morale. The officers realize that any interaction with a suspect, no matter how warranted, may end up destroying their lives and family. Proactive policing, typified by the very effective broken windows policies, is gone, and crime has increased. Rates of murder, assault, and burglaries have increased dramatically, in some neighborhoods by as much as 500%. The decades-long decrease in crime appears to be ending. Unfortunately, the immediate victims of the rising urban violence are the poor of the inner city. Their ability to live and work safely and climb out of that morass will be threatened by the empowered criminals. But have no fear, the violence will not stay in the ghetto. Everyone must be vigilant. Further compounding these political errors, politicians will take advantage of the increased crime rates to push for the usual ineffective gun restrictions. If you want to, please read the attached article in our show notes. It's well worth your time, and prepare. Be aware. It's an increasingly dangerous world.
If I could, I'm not entirely positive myself, and so I'm thinking our readers our listeners may have one maybe not clear on it. What is a broken window policy?
Ah. Anybody else? I can.
Go ahead.
The broken windows policy was made famous by Rudy Giuliani in New York. I believe the policy itself as a style of policing predates him. It says, if you take care of the broken windows, the burglary of abandoned buildings goes down. The burglary of industrial areas goes down. The burglary then of local homes goes down. Basically, if you take care of the small crimes and eliminate those things that lead to small crimes, you get a trickle-up effect and reduce the rate of larger crimes.
So that does make sense. If you snuff out the problem when it's small, it never becomes big.
Well, the contentious issue here, Paul, is, and we've seen it in these poor communities, where police jump on them and fine them to death. Oh, your car was parked. Okay, the permit's out. This sticker, tail light. Ah, tire tread. Do you have $500? I see it's a second offense. Now we get to tow your car, and you don't have $700 to go retrieve it from an impound lot.
Mm. Okay.
Is that a clip on your? Is that clip in your pocket a knife? Is it a gravity knife?
Well, it can be carried. Now, is the stop and frisk policy in New York, is that the eventual progression of the broken windows policy? Because I really don't like the stop and frisk.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think the goal is to stop two things. If you reduce the levels of lower crime, people are on the streets. It puts more eyes on the streets. It makes the citizens more willing. The citizens themselves don't become habitualized to crime, and also criminals don't usually jump into murder. They have a progression that starts with petty crime.
Okay.
Well, one thing I would like to say about this, in this article, well, we talked about politicians pushing for increased gun control. I think it was just this week, Rahm Emanuel said, okay, we've got a problem in Chicago, we need more gun control.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is certainly proven. Now, if he had said gang control, that might have been different.
Mm-hmm.
But that might impact the Democratic political base.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, here's a single thing, short word, that we can point to. We're wrong, but we can still point to it.
Firearms are a political scapegoat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's go ahead and head off to our gun quote, and I'll go ahead and handle this one this week. The quote is from Samuel Adams. How strangely will the tools of a tyrant pervert the plain meaning of words? We're going to go ahead and end up the news segment then, and we'll be back with our interview right after this. That was almost a double segment, but we can live with it.
Let me see if Alexander is pinging me on Facebook. Somebody did call me during the middle of it. So, no, that's something else.
While we're in the break here, viewers, especially Tony, thank you for sending in that Q&A. You can either, everybody comment on the YouTube channel, or you can send us a Q&A, and we'll answer your questions on the air. Oh, my son just got 6 stitches.
Ooch.
In the web of his right hand, left hand, in between the thumb and the first finger. He was pulling on something that had a zip tie. Apparently, the zip tie tightened and caught him and opened up quite the gash on his hand. Okay, when Rob comes back, how about if we don't have Alexander, we'll just power on with the DGUs and get back to Alexander when he comes in.
Yeah.
Well, while Rob's doing that, I'll take a quick bio break.
Yep.
Don't mind.
I think I'm gonna do the same thing.
Alexander, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, there you are. Yes, everybody jumped off for a little breaky break. They'll be right back in a couple minutes. Ready for you.
All right, great. Can you guys hear me okay?
Sounds great. There's Rob. Alexander is here, Rob?
Oh, good. He made it.
Yes.
That was me checking voice messages. One of them was Alexander. There we go.
How's it going, Rob?
It's a great day. Okay, where are we now?
Everybody else went to potty share.
Oh, I would. Gary, when you said you were working out with the para, is that just punch and paper presentations?
I do a little bit of dry fire at home.
Sure.
But, I need to make sure that it's reliable before it goes into full-time duty. And at the moment it's not. I talked to Para. I talked about it on the show a while back, and he just said it's a little tight. Put 500 rounds through it, then check back with me.
Okay.
So I'm around. I haven't been keeping strict track. About 400 through. I shot 2 boxes of my self-defense, which is Ranger T, and I was having half the magazine not go into battery.
Mm.
And now I had 2 out of 50, out of the second box of 50, give me a little fit. So
That's too much.
that's still too much, absolutely. So
Is it on all your magazines or just one? Or
no, it was all. It was, like I said, 7 rounds of mag, and so it's gotten greatly reduced. But he also said don't clean it for the first 350 or 400 rounds, so it hasn't been. So now I'm going to clean it and then try another 100 and see what happens.
this is a double stack?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I see? We got one more person. Is Alexander with us?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, there
Okay,
we
you
go.
guys ready to go?
Hey, sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
I have actually 2 now showing 2 instances of Alexander in my pictures on the bottom of my screen.
I'm going to run to the bathroom quickly. I'll be back in a few minutes.
That's fine.
Okay. You can walk.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm reading up on recallsweeney.com
Mhm.
while we're waiting for Alexander.
Mhm.
Please join us to make New Jersey and America's history by recalling Senator Stephen Sweeney. He has destroyed New Jersey with his terrible policies, which have led to the worst state for economic growth. He refuses to listen to educators and parents to stop PARCC, corporate-controlled Common Core education. He drove 10,000 millionaires out of New Jersey in 2013 alone for them to live or retire in more tax-friendly and tax-free states. Small, mid, and large companies have relocated to more business-friendly states due to his policies.
I am back.
Mercedes-Benz is one of the most recent, and they took over 1,000 excellent-paying jobs to Georgia. Cost of living and services is highest than any other state. #1 state, people are leaving.
Ahead of California.
Plus, you can't even pump your own gas in New Jersey.
Are we on? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just reading.
Recording.
I'm just reading recallsweeney.com to my colleagues here.
Every day, 10,000 people are not leaving, but fleeing New Jersey to go to more tax-friendly and affordable states.
Well, hold on there, Alex. Let's let the
All
tape.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Sound Engineer, are we ready to record?
I believe we are, sir.
Well, before you start, I have to say that we here in Illinois are fighting for that bottom spot with New Jersey as far as not economically friendly to businesses.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're down there with you.
Well, no, I thought California was the worst for business.
Boy, you would have. I'm having spent time in California, but being a little familiar with New Jersey, man, I think it's
whoever's in the lead, they're not there by much.
6-5 and
You're
pick 'em.
splitting hairs at that point when you're comparing California to New Jersey.
I know it's pathetic. I know. Alex, what are we doing anyway? Okay.
All right. Rob, you set up the interview. Do you want to go ahead and do the bring us in?
I will.
All right, and rolling.
Welcome back to the interview segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. We have Alexander Rubian with us from the New Jersey Second Amendment Society. Alex is spearheading an effort to recall New Jersey Senator Stephen Sweeney. That's amazing. Alexander, tell us about it. What's happening and why?
Well, thanks for having me back on the show, guys. I don't even know where to begin. You know, we could talk about this issue of why New Jersey is probably the worst state to live in right now for hours, but this is for the people. We've had enough, and this is an opportunity for everybody to join forces and be able to recall our Senate president who has destroyed this state over the past 10, 15 years with his horrific policies, raising taxes on middle class. He's been putting more and more regulations on small, medium, and large business. It's been an exodus, mass exodus of businesses leaving. You go to some of the industrial parks in the state, which should be the mecca if you look at geographically where New Jersey is located, and it's empty warehouses, it bankrupt businesses. And the friends that I've had that have moved to other states say they'd rather pay $1,000 or $500 to ship their stuff from Pennsylvania or Virginia just to have it go to the port of Newark, as long as they don't have to operate their business in New Jersey because of the taxes and regulation.
Well, it just makes financial sense. I mean, if you're going to be paying exorbitant taxes, if you can save on taxes in a freer state and pay to ship your stuff in, I mean, it's dollars and cents. If you're saving more on taxes than you do on shipping, you more money in your bottom line.
Exactly.
One thing that amazes me, most people don't realize that many corporate profits are on the 4 to 5% range of gross sales. They end up paying much more. Companies end up paying much more in taxes than they ever earn in profit.
Yeah. And also remember, and because of the nature of this podcast, here's an individual that promised us as well that he will never put forward any form of anti-gun legislation as long as he's a Senate president. And as a Senate president, he can pick and choose which bills he wants to be heard, go to committee, and go to a vote. But immediately after he was reelected, he rammed all the anti-gun bills, over 100, through the Senate to go up for a vote. And it was, and even being worse of a senator, he brings down the Newtown families and parades them in the news as the reason why we have to do these things. Now, why is he importing calamity and tragedies from other states to New Jersey when not one person I've ever talked to from the inner cities of New Jersey has he ever reached out to any victims of any form of violence from Camden or Trenton and Newark? You know, for me, that's disgusting. That's deplorable that an individual to push forward his agenda would exploit victims' families like that so that he could push forward more anti-gun legislation after he was reelected.
Well, I think it's easier for him to say that violence that happens over there, he'd like to do anything but point to the violence that happens in Newark and Camden.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at his legislative district. It looks like it includes Camden.
Mm-hmm.
Does he represent Camden?
I don't believe he does. I haven't memorized the entire. Let me just pull it up quickly on my.
But it says he was born in Camden. That's why I'm like, you would think.
Oh, okay. He's in Legislative District 3, and which actually just got a report done by Seton Hall, and they said that it is the worst economically developed and area for growth in New Jersey.
Well,
so in other words, it's the worst of the worst.
Yeah, it's the worst of the worst. He was interviewed about this a few years ago, and the reporter was talking about, decrepit buildings and, businesses being closed down, and people can't even maintain their homes. He turns around and says, "Oh, it's beautiful. I can drive for miles without seeing anybody." That was his response.
Oh, wow.
And how he tries to flip it.
So, Alexander, the website is recallsweeney.com.
Yes,
is that correct?
It's Recall, R-E-C-A-L-L, Sweeney spelled SWEENEY.com, and we have a launch event, Day of Action, on June 27th. Now, the key thing here is that we need people to help collect signatures, which we need 25% of the registered voters from his district. Now, the number is about 34,805. Our goal is to get 40,000 signatures. If 100 people show up and they go out, and on my experiences with campaigns collecting signatures, worst case scenario, in an afternoon of work, I've collected 130. So worst case scenario, and people are doubting this is going to ever be successful, but let me give you the numbers. If 100 people show up and they collect 100 signatures, that's 10,000 signatures right there. Now, we had a rally in 2013 where 1,500 people showed up in the middle of a blizzard in February. So imagine 200, 300, 500, or 1,000 people show up to help collect signatures, and we have the voter information. We're going to give you the names and addresses of all the friendlies, people that we know will knock based on their voting record. So it's a solid victory for us to get him to go into a recall election and get him out of office.
So let me ask this. If somebody wants to volunteer to help you, do they need to be a New Jersey registered voter? Can they come from out of state to help?
They can come from out of state, but only the person, which is called the circulator of the petition, needs to be a registered voter of New Jersey. Now, that doesn't mean that you couldn't drive the car or Rob couldn't drive the car and you have 2 New Jersey residents in the car with you, and they jump out, they go down the street collecting signatures from each side, and then they go meet you at the end of the street, and those 2 can rotate. Now, there was also, the irony here is that we're using this to our advantage. However, in 2014, there was a very liberal progressive group called Empower Our Neighborhoods who sued the state and said that the law used to be that you had to be a resident of the district to help collect signatures for any form of an election. They said that's a violation of their rights. They ended up taking it to the Supreme Court and winning, and because of that lawsuit, now anybody from New Jersey can go down to his district and help collect signatures.
Gotcha.
We have a lot of New Jersey listeners, and honestly, a whole lot of listeners up and down the eastern seaboard. So if you're within driving distance of New Jersey and can lend a hand, please, please, please do that. And I would imagine they could get involved by just visiting that website, right?
Visit the website. You can make donations. We're supplying breakfast and lunch, so they'll have coffee, donuts, bagels available. We did all the hard work for everybody. All they had to do is show up. Tim Knight, who led the 3 successful Colorado recalls, he's showing up to speak. And then from there, we're going to have maybe 15 minutes to 30 minutes of training on how to knock on doors, letting everyone know you knock on the doors, you ask for their support to sign the petition, what to say, etc. And then from there, we're breaking down. We're going to give everybody packets which have the petitions in it, as well as a walk list on the people's homes that we know will sign the petitions. And then we can celebrate after, come back, drop off the packet, and we'll have a big celebration.
And that's Saturday, June 27th?
June 27th. And what I tell people is the weekend after that is 4th of July. How amazing it would be that if in one afternoon...
Oh, that would be awesome.
We celebrate New Jersey every June 27th as our Day of Independence, when we knocked out the second most powerful politician in New Jersey from office because we've had enough of his horrific policies and invasion of our rights.
So people can sign up now. It's in Glassboro, but you're not exactly sure where yet?
No, this is a guy that when the NRA sent out literature for his opponent in his last election, it magically disappeared. And listen to this, because they call him the Union Thug. He's one of the vice president of the Iron Workers of New Jersey, and he has a lot of allies in the unions. And magically, the NRA, which sent an entire palette of literature to all of the constituents in his district, magically disappeared in a warehouse. And 2 weeks after the election, everyone started receiving the literature on his opponent. So, you know what? I can't make for certain that he was or was not involved. I'm not going to make any forms of accusations. But I wouldn't be surprised if we released a location and they have 30 days to intimidate or influence that this business's license might be revoked, or you don't know. We just don't know. This is New Jersey. I could tell you horror story after horror story of the types of intimidation that goes on between political parties.
Right.
So a day or two before, we're going to put it on our website. You can sign up. You get it in your email. It doesn't make a difference. It's going to be in that district area, so you can drive the whole district in half an hour. It's not like you're going to be driving 2 hours to go to the area and then have to drive another hour somewhere else.
Gotcha.
But that's the kind of stuff we have to deal with here, and it's very sad that they cannot play fair with us, and that's more reason. This isn't just a state issue. We have to make the example of look what they, from the narrative being today, look what they are doing in New Jersey and getting away with, to look what they tried in New Jersey and their Senate president was fired and kicked out of office because of it.
Well, if we could, I'd like to switch gears just a little bit, if we could, and talk about a victory that happened a couple weeks ago. Ever since we've had people from NJ2AS coming on the show, we've been talking about Operation Established Compliance, and that is trying to get it so that all of the individual cities and municipalities in New Jersey cannot add to the paperwork required for somebody to exercise their Second Amendment rights.
Yes.
Recently, there's been a decision that came through that validated what you folks have been trying to do for a long time. Could you talk about that for just a little bit?
I mean, this is the form of insanity that we have to deal with in New Jersey. The law cannot be more clear. One sentence, black and white. It's almost like when you read the Constitution and then they want to manipulate it. It says there, no additional forms can be added to the application process. It is so simple, but now we've spent years fighting in court to finally get a ruling that says, hey, police departments, you cannot require any additional forms. And you might ask, well, what kind of forms are they going to require? They're asking you to waive all of your HIPAA rights. They're asking you to give a copy of your lease, a copy of a phone bill, a copy of your electric bill, every possible thing to make it more and more prohibitive for you to apply for a firearms card. And sure enough, we had to, the court side in our favor in saying that, hey, you cannot require any additional forms.
Very cool. So, what else is going on with NJ2AS? Have you got any meetings coming up? What's going on there?
We've been having phenomenal meetings throughout the state since January. Some of the things that we've been discussing is, now we've been around for over 5 years now, and we tried doing things the nice way, which is having meetings with our legislators, going down to Trenton to testify. Now tomorrow on Monday, there's going to be another hearing on expanding the law to include that if you are even just accused of any form of domestic violence, you'll lose your rights, your firearms will be confiscated, they'll be destroyed. You probably will never get them back. And once again, we're back to square one. We're sitting there trying to discuss laws that already exist. The fact that, if you are a convicted domestic abuser, that you don't have a right to be able to own a gun. So that's not the issue here. And Gabby Giffords came to New Jersey to push this legislation, which already exists, which is the insanity. They're just, writing another law for a law that already exists. But, the Bureau of Justice Statistics came out with a report called Murder in Families. And to make my point, they said that 74% of murder defendants that were involved in a domestic dispute had criminal records and had convictions of crimes. So they're already not able to own a gun and prohibited from owning a gun, but for some reason they still acquired a firearm illegally. So their logic here in New Jersey is, well, let's make more laws to prohibit people from owning guns. Meanwhile, a majority of these crimes are being committed by people that are already prohibited from owning a firearm.
Exactly. We cover that. Well, the only way I can imagine it, Alexander, is you need to keep saying it, I need to keep saying it, and eventually the public will listen. Because I don't think they're hearing that story.
No, they're not. Well, the other story that they're not showing is that even in this report, almost 50%, and this is how they play the emotional argument, and you guys know this, but to your listeners, they fill the room with moms and all these, all these women, but in this government-issued report, they're saying that almost 50% of domestic violence abuse is men. So when they were having their propaganda and their press releases and talking to the media, there was no men being represented in the crowd or in their message. So that's another thing, how they manipulate people's emotions, saying, "Oh, well, we have to protect these women, we have to protect these moms." Let's fill the room with women, but statistically, men make up almost 50% of victims of domestic violence.
One thing that bothers me is that in California we have, what do they call it? Domestic violence firearms restraining orders, but there's no penalty for filing false charges.
That's another issue that they don't address in New Jersey, and I had someone tell me that that someone filed a restraining order against their ex-boyfriend, just out of pure being malicious. That person had to go to court. The victim never even showed up. The judge called and said, "Well, where's the victim?" Oh, verbatim, I'm not joking. The judge says she's snowmobiling in Lake George. And when the defendant said, "Well, she couldn't let the court know. I had to bring all the witnesses saying I never even talked to her that evening. I wasn't even there. She made this whole thing up." They said, "Well, if you don't like it, get a lawyer." That's the court's response to a person. Right. And that's their attitude. But sure enough, she got away with fraud, which it was. She was snowmobiling in Lake George, enjoying her vacation, but this individual had to go to court and spend the entire day there. So, I mean, we can talk till our faces turn blue. The fact of the matter is that, when you approach these situations with logic, you'll go insane, because it's not about logic for them. It's not about facts. It's about their agenda. And their agenda is they want to make every way possible to confiscate and steal your firearms or prohibit you from owning it and not make it easy for any individual to acquire one. And that's this classic liberal progressive agenda that's going on in New Jersey. And something I'm emphasizing to everyone is that what happens here doesn't stay here. Even in Virginia, they're even talking about reinstating one gun a month. Now, based on the way their legislators are made up now, it'll probably never happen. But what's going to happen 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, 12 years from now if they keep pursuing this conversation? And where does this come from? One gun a month comes from New Jersey. We spearheaded that year, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. And now we have other states looking at our laws and saying, well, look what they're doing in New Jersey. They're rationing firearms. They're giving only one permit per month for people to buy and making it as difficult as possible. We should try doing the same thing here. And that's why we're done having a conversation with these legislators. The point of this recall is we've had meetings with Sweeney. We've had discussions. He personally looked me in the eyes, shook my hand, and said, as long as he's Senate President, this is verbatim, as long as he's Senate President, there will be never any form of anti-gun legislation coming onto the floor. And what did he do? He stabbed us in the back and rammed him through the minute he got reelected. So we're tired of being stepped all over and taken advantage of and looked at as idiots with, being a paper tiger, and that's why the recall is so important. So June 27th, it's recallsweeney.com. You can sign up as a volunteer. You can contribute. You can help, whatever you can help with. We're looking to make this a national model to show legislators if they mess with our rights, whatever it may be, we're going to get them out of office.
Well, wait a minute. I'm on the opposite corner of the United States, way over here in California. We do use American currency. You guys still use that in New Jersey, right?
Yes, I think so.
That means I could send you some money even if I can't show up.
Exactly. You can make a donation to our cause, and whatever it may be. If you can't physically come out, help us out financially so that we can help get other volunteers, through advertising and through Facebook advertising, that we can get people to come out and help collect signatures. And like I said, we need 40,000. If we get 100 people showing up, which already on Facebook we have almost 300 showing up to as being either committed to coming or they're maybes, we could slam dunk this. I mean, imagine the repercussions this would have on a national front when they see we kicked out, the second most powerful politician in New Jersey just in one weekend.
Amen. Well, we are coming up on break, and before we go, I just want to, if I could, folks, New Jersey, and we've been saying this for a very long time, New Jersey, you can help New Jersey even if you don't live there, like they were just saying about possibly help with donations at recallsweeney.com. Also, become a member of the New Jersey Second Amendment Society.
Absolutely.
You do not have to be a resident of New Jersey to be a member. I myself am a member. Make sure that your voice counts where it's needed most. And if I'm not mistaken, it's still Alexander, it's still $35 a year for a membership.
It's only $35 a year. We have members nationwide. We even have members in Canada. And it's my goal. We're going to focus on this results-oriented activism that when people see what we're doing here, they are going to use us as an example to replicate everything that happened in New Jersey in form of our activism in other states. And I'd love to have a program where we can go to other states, like when I went to Connecticut and Virginia, to help people there, that people will do the same with us.
What happens in New Jersey does not stay in New Jersey. That's both good and bad, so let's make sure good happens in New Jersey.
Absolutely.
Or we do need to head off to break. Alexander, I need you to hang on because I do want to talk to you after we clear the break. But we'll be right back with our DGUs, and those will come at you right after this. Very, very cool.
And thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, guys. Are we on break now?
Yeah, we are. Okay. Alexander, real quick, we've been running the same ad for NJ2S for a very long time. Do you want us to update that ad?
Yeah, I wasn't even aware there was an ad being played on the show.
Every episode for the past couple of years.
Ooh, shame on me. It's been so hard. We've been just reorganizing the NJ2AS. We're really focusing, like I said on the show, I'm not focusing on, having a narrative with these legislators. We really have to just focus on kicking them out. So I have to go through the list of sponsors we have on our website and find out who's current and not. But what is the ad you guys have running?
I can email it to you. Basically, it's a pre-recorded audio. Matter of fact, if you could, I can just hit the button here just a second.
Yep.
This part of the show is brought to you by the New Jersey Second Amendment Society. The NJ2AS has been working hard in New Jersey to fight for our constitutional rights and has been having some real successes. Between Operation Established Compliance, Frank Fiamingo's work fighting bad gun laws in the legislature, and their new urban outreach program, positive things have been happening in New Jersey. Restrictive environmental laws started in California and spread across the nation. The New Jersey Second Amendment Society is fighting bad gun laws where they are at their worst, so that they don't spread. They do need more help. They need you to become a member. A strong membership shows that they will have a strong voice and can deliver results. You don't need to be a New Jersey resident to join, so won't you please go to www.nj2as.com and become a member today. A one-year membership is only $35, and since there's no paid staff at NJ2AS, every penny goes to fight the fight in New Jersey. That's www.nj2as.com. Join the fight today.
That's the ad that runs every.
Okay. Well, obviously Frank's no longer with the organization, so we should
Right.
probably update that.
Yeah. Just let me know what that particular promo is a 58-second promo.
Okay.
I can let him go up to about a minute and a half. I'm pretty comfortable with. Just if you want to just shoot me a script of what you want read, I will make it work.
Okay. Let me. I like that. It sounds pretty good. It's kind of relative to what it is today. I just really want to emphasize to people and your listeners that we're focusing on results-oriented activism. It's unfortunate. Like the job that you and I are doing and the message that we're portraying, it should be the opposite way. The legislators should be educating us on that.
Yeah.
And if this was 200 years ago, we'd be shooting by now. So they have it easy that we're working on a diplomatic fashion of getting them kicked out of office. So.
Yep. Absolutely.
You guys have like a map that shows where the base of your listeners come from?
I can give you an overall map. Yeah. I can drill down to state level. I can drill down on some point. At some point, I can drill down to city level.
Not just a general one. Do you know off the top of your head, or it's evenly distributed throughout?
Let me see here. Just let me go to our.
I just love looking, and I think we can probably use that to our benefit. But I love looking at our donations, and it shows like nationwide donations coming from all different parts of the country, and I think we can use that in saying, we're united. We are the United States. We're a republic. We're not just, hey, what happens in Jersey? Who cares about them?
Just a second here. I got to pull up stats to do that. Now, you're looking for our national stats? Or are you looking for our New Jersey stats? What are you looking for?
No, just in general, like where your listeners are based out of. If it's evenly distributed throughout the rest of the country, that's fine. But for instance, you guys had a big base, most of your base coming from from a specific state.
We have our biggest state is California.
Okay. Is that where everyone's from? I didn't know where everyone was from.
No.
We're from all over. Rob's from California. I am from South Dakota. John's from North Carolina, and Gary is from Illinois. Let me see here. I'm still trying to.
Most of the oppressive states. I was telling. With what's happening in D.C. and the courts there, what I told people was Chicago, like Illinois, Chicago, Washington D.C. and Iraq have more gun rights than New Jersey does. And my friend just got back from serving in Iraq, and he was telling me that people can carry there. There's no limits on the types of firearms they can have. And I'm like, wow. Even in Iraq, which we call that an oppressive country, they're still able to conceal carry, open carry, have AK-47s with whatever accessories they have.
California is our #1 state, followed by Texas, Florida, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Illinois, New York, and New Jersey.
Cool.
Top 10. New Jersey has got 9,247 downloads in the range of history that I've got selected here. Which is
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So, let me see here.
You guys have like a monthly download.
We're hitting just over 10,000 a month.
That's excellent. That's very good.
Well, and what we've done, we were used to be a twice a week show. Now we're once a week.
Okay.
The numbers, despite having half the shows, the numbers are still growing. Our per episode download has almost doubled.
Let me add it on my podcast. Let me add it on my podcast store thing on whatever this thing's called on my iPhone.
Now, also, the number one market, U.S. market for our downloads is New York City, which encompasses part of New Jersey. So
excellent, yeah. I mean, imagine having 5,000 people show up to this day of action and helping collect signatures.
Well, just knowing from, I do not know I've never found anybody that relates this specifically to podcasts, but I know in radio, a great turnover in radio is 1%. So if you have 100 people listen, one person acting on that advertisement is a great turnover ratio.
Yeah.
So 9,000, you're probably realistically looking at 90, 92, 100.
Yeah, but I mean, look at that. Even if you get 50 people, that's 5,000 signatures that they could potentially collect in one afternoon.
Yeah.
And that's like this legislators that we should go after Loretta Weinberg, who's the woman that had meetings with Gabby Giffords and everything, and she's a horrific, terrible legislator, but she's so popular in her district. She gets 80-90% of the vote. And I'm like, why would we waste? I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time in a woman that gets 30,000 more votes than a Republican. Like, it's just. But what we can do is make her the Senate majority, from the Senate majority leader to the Senate minority leader.
Okay.
I just subscribed to you guys, but we have with Sweeney. He's a very he won his last election by 4.8%, and the Republican, who was a no-name Republican, spent $200,000. When he spent $3 million of money between Bloomberg and his union thugs, just to win by 4.8%. I mean, so I'd like to have anybody tell me that this cannot be possible and we can't make this a reality.
I'm just looking at the website. Do you have a section of recommended podcasts or somewhere where we're listed on the NJ2AS site?
It should be on there. Let me go back to it. We haven't updated. I stripped out a lot of stuff in February because we're migrating over to to Nation Builder. And of course, like everything is like, we'll get it done in 2 weeks, and it's been like 3 months now. We still haven't finished a new website because I've been so busy organizing the recall stuff, which is taking much longer. Let me go to nj2as.com. Sign out of there. It should be under the sponsor section, I'm assuming.
That's what I thought, and I didn't see it, so that's what I was...
Rob, how come you didn't tell me when we're in person?
I'm sorry, I was replacing.
Shame on me.
Somebody say something to me? Oh,
no.
Okay.
No, go. It's okay, Paul. We'll wake you up later. Okay. Well, look, those are guys that gave you money. So I can understand why we're not thought of as a sponsor, but it would be nice to get a link posted somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me, like I said, this hasn't been updated in a very long time. And what I did, I stripped out a lot of the philosophical crap that we had on there because, I'm sure that your base and our base, we don't need to be lectured on what our rights are. We already know that. What we have to do is focus on activism that's going to restore our rights, and then we can build, some form of a coalition or army that will make sure it never happens again.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Under news and resources, you have a media section that might be appropriate. I'm not sure. You can talk with Paul about it.
Yeah. I mean, even here, this NJ2AS women things. Like I told people, like. We shouldn't differentiate between women and minorities and this and that, because the Second Amendment never did that. Like, it doesn't mean if you're black or if you're a woman or you're Caucasian, your rights are any different.
Guys, I'm trying to. My wife is nagging me. We have some events scheduled. Should
Yeah,
we?
I gotta get to a dinner at 7. Rob,
Oh, good.
let-
Yes.
yeah, wait, are you expecting me to go back on the show right now?
Nope. I don't think so.
Okay, cool. So, Rob, just send me everyone's contact information. We'll get an updated ad. I'll make sure. Just give me a few weeks when we get the. We'll promote you guys on Facebook. That's really easy. But I'm not going to invest time on cleaning up this website because we have a whole new platform, and we'll get you guys in there, and we'll talk about that more.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks again, guys. Have a great night.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Bye.
All right, DG, Rob, can you hang out for DGs, or do you need to jet?
No. Let's go.
Okay. Looks like it's my turn to narrate, so let me go back to show notes.
Okay.
And here we go. Hey, and welcome back to the DGU segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Again, DGU segment, first one we got coming up is a 51-year-old woman was shot defending the occupants of her home from 3 armed and masked attackers. The 3 attackers burst through the Townsend, Delaware home and demanded money. One of the occupants was roughed up by an invader. The woman shot at an armed intruder and suffered a shot to the leg in exchange of gunfire. The invaders fled. It is not known if any were injured. She and the roughed-up young man are in the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Sometimes the cost of self-defense can be high, but worth it, especially when 4 lives are in the balance.
Yeah, it's the first thing I thought of. 3 attackers, and I thought, is 7 rounds really enough if this was in New York?
No.
To properly defend against these guys? It seems like there was a lot of gunfire going on, and boy, I'm glad I don't live in a state that, at least where I live in this part of the state, does not restrict me to 7 or 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, our next one, a Trenton, New Jersey, yes, you heard that right, New Jersey woman was forced to defend her life with a gun. A jilted lover broke into her house and she shot him in the thigh. The lovesick and ventilated Jerome Morris was picked up by police and taken to the hospital. He has been charged with criminal mischief. As of now, the woman has not been charged, but the New Jersey investigation is ongoing. I commented when we were talking about this one, we were setting up show notes. I talked with Charlie Foxtrot, who writes these up for us. You know, the woman is not being charged right now, but knowing New Jersey, she's likely to face life without parole for using a gun at all.
Yep.
Well, but I'm thinking of old Jamoyne here thinking, no, it's your thigh. She could have shot higher.
Yeah.
About a foot higher, maybe.
Yeah. And folks, I want to talk a little bit about shoot to wound. Shooting somebody in the leg, it was a thigh shot. It could have easily been a fatal thigh shot. If you were to hit one of the arteries that runs through the thigh, the main artery extending down the thigh, you can bleed out in just a minute or two. So if you're going to shoot to stop, and that's a center mass shot or a head shot. Shooting the thighs or the legs or arms is really going to make them mad and won't necessarily stop what they're doing. Moving on then, next one. A Sebastian, Florida cab driver is alive and well after being held at knife point by 2 would-be robbers thanks to being armed. The 2 men had hailed the cab on an early Saturday morning and then held a knife on the driver as they attempted to rob him. The cabbie drew his handgun and shot one of the men. After the shooting, both men fled the scene. However, police were able to follow the blood trail and find them. The cabbie identified the wounded man as the one who held the knife on him. The wounded man was given medical assistance but died on his The wounded man was given medical assistance but died en route to the hospital. Speaking as a former cab driver, and that shot, drawing from concealment, unless you're in a thigh holster, drawing from concealment and getting a gun pointed towards the passenger, if you're right-handed in the United States, is a pretty tricky shot. Pretty good on the cab driver for getting that draw and the shot pulled off.
Yep.
All right, next one then. Two guys were helping a third guy move into his Aurora, Colorado condo. They were approached by 3 juveniles who attempted to rob the men at gunpoint. 2 of the men started to pull out their wallets. The third man pulled out his handgun and shot all 3 of the robbers. 1 juvenile died while being taken to the hospital. Another is in serious condition, and a third was arrested on unrelated charges after he sought treatment for a shoulder wound at Aurora South Hospital. The movers were questioned by police and prosecutors and released without any charges. Anybody want to bet this guy either competes or has been through some training?
I was about to say that. Two things. It is scary for me to cross draw in a competition because I'm pointing a gun at the femoral, at my legs. We work really hard.
And he's gone.
Okay, I thought it was just me.
No, he's off the hangout. Okay. Does anybody else want to comment on that one?
Let's see.
No, once again, would 7 rounds been enough? I don't think so. Not probably, maybe. I wouldn't want to be limited.
Yeah. Well, one thing that comes to mind about this. I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
I was going to say, they were all juveniles, and at least one of them was armed. And one will never grow up. One's going to be lucky to grow up, and the third one is going to be going to jail for a long while.
Yeah.
These youths.
One thing, when we went through the Beyond Concealed Carry Enhanced course here a couple weeks ago now, one of the drills we did was you had 3 attackers, and you had to move and engage the 3 attackers. And one thing that I never thought of, I thought of it like a basketball game, and that is if you were to do a pick with one attacker against another. In other words, as you're moving, line up 2 of the attackers so they line up one behind the other. That way, if you shoot the first one and you happen to have a through and through, always be aware of your target and what lies beyond it. Well, if a bad guy lies beyond your target, bonus if you get the through and through.
I never thought of that.
The military calls it stacking.
Okay.
You want to stack your opponents because, for one, usually it keeps the guy in the back from shooting at you because he doesn't want to shoot his compatriot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then that was discussed too. If the guy in back does happen to draw on fire and he hits the guy that you're lining up, well, yeah,
that'll work.
Yeah. He wants to do some of your work. Great.
Rob, when you lost you were talking about competition, and we didn't catch all of that. Did you want to?
Yeah, could you just? I'll edit this all through so it sounds natural. But Rob, could you start from the beginning of that one?
Paul, it's interesting that you mentioned competition for these guys in Aurora. I was thinking it for the cab driver in Sebastian, Florida. We have they're called stages where you start from a seating position. The thought of carrying appendix carry and drawing under pressure from the appendix position is pretty intimidating because you're pointing a gun at your lower legs. We work very hard to not do that. I understand the reason for it, makes great sense, but it demands that you practice and be competent, particularly under pressure. So if you are appendix carrying, that's an extra reason to get training and compete under stress. The cost of getting it wrong is much higher. As for the moving story in the Aurora condo, 3 shots. That's about from concealment. I'm thinking a second and a half. If the first guy's holding the gun, the other 2 were shot before they know what happened.
Yeah, I can see that. I do want to go back, and I realized running over the conversation in my head, I mistook. Ladies, if you're cab drivers, you could certainly wear thigh holsters. I think guys would probably want to wear an ankle holster.
Yeah, that still it just require those carry positions require practice.
They do.
Mhm.
All carry positions require practice.
Good point.
I even switching between the last time I took a professional class, I was wearing my inside the waistband holster, and this last one, I was wearing my Sidewinder Pro outside the waistband holster, and the change in draw stroke was significant, even going from just inside the waistband to outside the waistband. So no matter what you've got, if you should be practicing it, period, but especially if you change where you carry or how you carry, even if you don't change the gun itself, make sure you're practicing.
Yeah, one of the things that I teach is that the strong side hip position seems to feel the most natural.
Right.
So when you do alter from that, it does take extra time and extra practice. So if you're going to ankle carry or appendix carry or off body like a purse or fanny pack kind of thing, those just require extra time, dry fire practice to make sure you've got that right.
I compete with a firearm at about the 3 o'clock position on the hip, but as I've been carrying more and more, and now I've converted to competing with the concealed carry pistol, I'm moving it back to 4:30.
Yeah.
Do you conceal on the point of your hip, or do you move it behind 2?
I would say 4:30 would be better concealed and more comfortable.
Now,
Okay.
when I'm going to take a little bit of it, for me personally, and I'm speaking only for Paul,
Right.
anybody else, when I conceal carry, I conceal at about 2:30 to 3 o'clock, just barely forward of the hip bone or right on it, because when I drive,
Right.
that keeps the gun in a neutral position and doesn't interfere with me sitting in the truck or in my pickup. Nothing is comfortable carrying in my wife's car.
Oh.
There is not a position, unless you're 5:30, 6 o'clock would work. But other than that, in my wife's little Toyota, there is nowhere that is comfortable to carry.
You know, I expected to have that problem, but I was carrying in my wife's Mustang with those bucket seats, and I didn't. It was at 4:30, and it felt fine. And I'm going, well, beat me up. I just never expected it. Just the oddity of where the contours are in the seat.
My issue, the Toyota has wraparound seats, kind of sport seats.
That's probably it.
So, yeah, if I carry at 3 o'clock, and I carry a full-size gun, I carry the Glock Model 23 or 22 40 caliber full-size Glock, and sitting down in those seats every single time, I have to start sitting, readjust, then continue sitting, and the gun is, no matter what, it's compressed against the seat. It's going to be an amazingly bad draw stroke. But if everybody listens to what I recommend all the time anyway, if I'm seated in a car, my best weapon is the car. Get the hell out of there.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, has anybody ever thought about using a shoulder holster?
Jason doesn't.
I mean, while you're driving, especially.
Yeah, I've thought about it. Even more than that, I've thought about the belly band. The shoulder holster, you're going to find that a lot of instructors really don't like to use a shoulder holster because naturally pointing handguns from a shoulder holster draw point backwards, and the instructors don't want to stand behind you where they almost have to because that violates one of the 4 rules. There are shoulder holsters that point down as a neutral
Mhm.
position, but getting the gun up and out of the holster without hitting your armpit requires you to stretch your non-drawing hand up over your shoulder and try to grab your other shoulder, and isn't the fastest in the world. I've looked into them, but I think if I were to go to a upper body carry position, I would go with a belly band over a shoulder holster myself.
I wore a shoulder holster as a bodyguard a million years ago, and was trained. The gun pointed straight down in the holster,
Hmm.
and was trained the proper draw, which does not point it behind you. It's more of bringing it out as it's pointing straight down type of motion, but it's difficult. Once again, it's not strong side hip carry, and does require a lot of extra training, extra practice. I was wearing a suit, like I said, as a bodyguard type of thing, so I was cool with it, but it does take an additional level of training and practice.
All right, well, let's go on to our next one then. From our listener John, he email. Let me start that again. Our next DGU came from listener John. He emailed this one in. Boy, this name is great. Ty Wingle was
Weigel.
Ty Weigel was interrupted in the pursuit of his trade by Willimantic. Thank you. I'm gonna start all over again. One of our listeners, John, emailed us this modern tale of jurisprudence. Ty Wingle was interrupted in the pursuit of his trade by a Willimantic, Connecticut resident. Mr. Weigel was attempting to steal a man's car parked in front of the man's house. Weigel declined to cease his attempts, so the resident went into his house, grabbed a handgun, and held on the uptake thief at gunpoint for the police. Old Ty is well known to the police and is said to be a heroin addict. No surprise there. The police stated, quote, "This is not our first time dealing with him with car break-ins. He was just arrested not too long ago. He was also a suspect in a car break-in earlier today. He's been charged with 6th-degree larceny, criminal attempt to commit the crime, and 2nd-degree breach of police. For all that, he's held on only a $5,000 bond. Listeners are invited to speculate on how long this one-man crime wave will remain behind bars. Police said the homeowner was not hurt, but cautioned other residents against confronting criminals."
Why? Because the police are going to detain the guy for 2 hours? According to what we've just heard here, no. If you want your property protected, you better go out front and tell the guy to get the heck out.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. Generally, I'm not a big fan of confronting anybody myself. However, I don't know. I guess my opinion on this is changing as time goes by. If they're going to be in jail for 15 minutes on a $5,000 bond, meaning their buddy comes up with $500 cash,
That's why I was breaking into the next car. I had to pay my buddy back for bailing me out from the last break-in.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know that he's going to have friends that have 500 ready cash to bail him out. That would be.
So his friends have to go break into a car to get. Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm
They're
just
going
saying.
to bail him out. They're going to go buy heroin on their own.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Guy's robbing for $20 fixes. He doesn't have friends with 500.
All right, our last one here. Many of our DGUs involve home invasions. Unfortunately, home takeovers are becoming very common as thieves become more brazen and violent. With the home invasion, kidnapping, extortion, and murder of the Savopoulos family in Washington, D.C., the Staffer Group has written an excellent article on surviving a home invasion. The article is being offered free to their non-subscribers. There's no way we could do this article justice trying to summarize it in just a few words. So we urge every one of our listeners to follow the link in the show notes
Whoops. edit point.
No kidding. So we urge every one of our listeners to follow the link in the show notes and read this potentially life-saving article. Again, we want to remind you, we do, before, has anybody read the article and want to comment on it?
I haven't.
Okay. One more edit point, and we do post each of our news and defensive gun use articles at PoliteSocietyPodcast.com, as well as we now parse out the show, and you can download just one of the news segments or just the DGU, or if you're really a masochist, just the personal news segment to find out what we're each doing. You can listen to all those separately or share them with your friends separately. We got one more segment to come up, and that's our blog post and email segment. We do have email this week. We'll get to that right after this. After I edit that all down, it'll be about 15 minutes.
Right. Alexander wanted to know when the show was going to come out. Paul, is it today or Wednesday?
Tonight sometime, as soon as I get it done. I'll start, as soon as we hang up, I'm going to grab a bite to eat, and I'll start editing. And as soon as I get it done. So if I would say his time, probably about midnight tonight.
Yeah, I told him late tonight. Okay, good.
All right. I think I'm just going to, just for expediency, I'm going to take us through this for the email, and then I'll throw, and we'll get her all handled and get out of here. So here we go. Hey, and welcome back to the email and blog post segment of the show. This is, again, the Polite Society Podcast, powered by the... Let me start that all over again.
Slow down, buddy.
Yeah, I know.
Just a half a beat. Is that Gary again?
Hi, and welcome back to the Polite Society Podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. This is our email and blog post segment. We do have one email. Let's go ahead and fire off right into this one. Alan emailed this one in with the subject line, holding a bad guy at gunpoint. He writes, hi, let me start by thanking you for your podcast. I listen to several different podcasts on a variety of topics, but I rank yours among the most anticipated each week. From time to time, someone mentions holding a bad guy at gunpoint until the police arrive. The question I have for you is, how do you do that? If I were some sort of person who makes a living divesting other people of their possessions, and I were to encounter an unarmed person, doggone it, I cannot talk. And I were to encounter a person, I'm still going too fast. And I were to encounter an armed person not inclined to be a victim, I believe I would simply turn my back, raise my hands in the air, and say in a loud, clear voice, quote, I'm going to walk away now. I'm not a threat to you. If you shoot me, you'll be convicted of murder. If you try to stop me or even touch me, you'll be convicted of assault. In either case, you'll end up in a civil court where me or my family will sue you for everything you and your family have or ever will have. I'm leaving now, and you would be stupid to try and stop me, unquote. In fact, based on recent news coverage, you could almost make the same speech to a police officer. What do you think? Alan, formerly of Houston, Texas, recently moved to Virginia. P.S. If you ever get tired of listening to podcasts, I suggest checking out LibRox.org. That's LIBRIVOX.org. They have a catalog of hundreds, maybe thousands of books that have passed onto the public domain, which are read by volunteers and available free of charge. Jules Verne, Edgar Rice Burroughs, all the books you were supposed to read in high school literature class, books by authors you've never heard of, etc. Most books date back to the early 1900s or before. It is quite educational listening to a 100-year-old book, hearing the different attitudes and cultures of the past. It's a wonderful resource for anyone who spends a lot of time in an activity which would benefit by the addition of mental stimulation. Alan. Great. I have listened to that several books off that LibriVox.org before, and I want to, real quick, I wrote him back, and I'm just going to read the email that I wrote back to him, and we'll then discuss it. I wrote, hey, Alan, Thanks for writing in. I just got home and have added your email to our show notes for Sunday's show. A few thoughts on your email. I will, of course, repeat these on the show, as I'm doing right now. Number one, if they do stop what they're doing and slowly back away, you are correct that since they aren't a threat to you, you could be convicted of murder if you do shoot. However, there are a few circumstances where you are morally obligated to shoot a retreating felon, even if the threat has stopped. If you attend a MAG 40 class, this will be discussed. Let me just say the chances are so remote to the extreme to say that while they are not zero, they are close. Number two, holding someone at gunpoint is all about control and command. Believe me, if I were to boost my voice out good and loud in the proper tone, that I can make someone absolutely believe, if they twitch in the wrong way, that I am able and prepared to shoot them. Number three, we need to differentiate the severity of what you're attempting to stop, or in the case of our conversation, have just stopped. If they've just kicked down your door and have maybe stolen something, let them go. If they've already killed, that's another story. There really is no black and white here. Finally, on your point of police, you do seem to have a point that, considering all the negative publicity in the mainstream media lately, however, I really wouldn't want to be the first one to try it. Anybody else, and that's the end of what I wrote back to him, anybody else want to comment about that email?
Yeah, couple things. First of all, he's right. Like you said, in most circumstances, if they're not a threat and leaving, let them go. The other thing is, as far as the police have a totally different set of circumstances when it comes to dealing with criminals. They're supposed to arrest them, and if they've witnessed them committing a crime. So yeah, we've seen some unfortunate incidents. We don't have all the facts of those incidents, so it's hard to say. But yeah, if somebody's not a threat to you personally, or have not, like you said, harmed anyone, let them go. It's okay.
I want to make a distinction here. If there's an armed intruder in my home, whether they are facing me or have turned away, they still possess lethal force and the ability to hurt me and my family. So unless he drops the gun, nah, I'm not worried about how he's oriented. There was something about, basically gang invasions of a home, a quick smash and grab, 6 guys coming through the door, guns come in first, guys behind grab stuff. Under those circumstances, I don't know that anyone has the time to differentiate someone who is armed from someone who is unarmed amongst the intruders in your home.
In the specific circumstance you're talking about, Rob, I'm not even going to say stop.
No, right.
The gun's coming up. As soon as I've got metal over meat, depending on distance, I'm going to start trying to stop the threat.
It gets real loud real fast, yeah.
It does.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those things with suppressors. We're not even
Very much so. Well, I think that covers that. And then thanks for writing in, Alan. I hope we covered and as to how do you hold somebody at gunpoint, Masada Ayoub's MAG 20 classroom, you need to take that course. You absolutely need to take that course. It's covered in depth. It's covered in depth. Let's go ahead and move on. Rob, have you been anything you want to talk about from your blog this weekend?
I do. There were 27 shootings in Baltimore over the Memorial Day weekend. 19 people were robbed in New York City's Central Park. Chicago had 12 people fatally shot, and in addition, 47 shot and wounded, all over the same Memorial Day weekend. Our oh-so-caring politicians had to show sympathy for this flood of Blue City blood. Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary, called for more gun control. In my post, I pointed out that the violence is the symptom, not the cause. The violence in these cities is caused by the failed policies of deep blue cities like Baltimore, Detroit, New York, and Chicago. You can't fix political stupid with gun control. I also spoke to a friend of mine. He's a local activist. He's a spark plug, and he gets things both started and completed. He and I realized that we started one step at a time. So I wrote an article called The Painless Ladder of Self-Defense Activism. It's up on at slowfacts.wordpress. It's up at slowfacts.wordpress.com. John, what do you want to tell us about your blog, No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money?
Well, I just want to mention a short post I did about the Brady Center lawyers on a case in Wisconsin. They have already had to withdraw from one case because they violated pre-trial publicity rules of the Wisconsin State Bar. Now it looks they will have to withdraw from another case in Milwaukee over the same issue. Their conduct is being alleged to be prejudicial to a fair jury. It just looks like another misstep by the bad apple lawyers from the Brady Center. This and other posts can be found at onlygunsandmoney.blogspot.com.
Also, I want to give a shout out to Charlie Foxtrot. He writes out our news and our DGU segments for us. And even though you don't get to hear him on the air, he's a big part of what you do get to hear. And he writes his blog at notonemoregunlaw.blogspot.com. I would like to thank Alexander Rubian for joining us on the air today. Good to talk to the folks at NJ2AS again. And you're going to be hearing more from them in the future. I'm certain of that. That does wrap up another episode of the Polite Society podcast. Rob, are you going to be here next weekend?
I'll be with you.
How about you, John?
I'll be here.
Gary, I know you're going to be here, right?
Check, baby.
All right. That does do it. I'll be here, and hopefully Susan will be here, and maybe Rachel. We'll see. So
Yes.
Until next time, everybody.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
Okay, before I take us offline, I do want to mention again our advertisers: Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, Graphics to Go, Firearms Safety Institute, and the Firearms Policy Coalition. Reminder for our live viewers: next weekend we're going to be late. We're not going to start this one until 7:30 p.m. Central Time, 4 hours after our normal start time. So come join us at 7:30 p.m. next Sunday, and then the Sunday after that we'll go back to our normal time. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next week.